In this video, I'm going to show you how to write a dispute letter from scratch. I will break down the anatomy of a dispute letter and provide you with a sample for reference. I also plan on sharing with you some tips to help you as you send off your first dispute letter. Hey, what's up everybody? Ralph here. So if you're watching this video right now, you probably have some negative items on your credit report and you're trying to figure out the best way to go about disputing it. Now you could go and dispute it online like most people do, but you'll come to learn that that usually doesn't work. So now you're looking to dispute via letter and you're wondering how to write one up. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how. So here is a sample of a dispute letter and let's go over each section, like starting with the heading. So when you're starting with your dispute letter, the first thing you want to do is with the heading, right? So the heading typically, contains like identifying information. You want to make sure it has your first and your middle and last name, and you also want to make sure it has your current address, right? And in some cases, you want to make sure that the heading also has like the last 4 digits of your social security number. You just want to make sure it has the last 4 digits. You don't have to worry about putting the whole number. So just make sure it has the first name, first and last name, the address, and then usually the last 4 digits of your social security number. Next, you'll have the address. Now, this is the address where you're going to be sending it to. Now this is usually either one of the 3 credit bureaus or the collection agency that you want to send out to. So basically you contain that credit bureau, whether it's Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, and then or the collection agent you want to send it to, like maybe let's say Discover or maybe whatever that third party collection agency is. So you want to make sure you put their name and then the address. Next, you want to have the subject line. Now this usually typically summarizes the content of the letter. So basically it'll say something like, for example, like validation requested for account that does not belong to me. So you just want to make sure you put the RE and then a quick summary of whatever this letter is about. So the next section is going to be the body of the letter, right? So the body is typically like the longest part of the letter, and it's usually divided into like three subcategories. So you'll usually have the introduction, the main content, and then the summary, right? So the introductory part usually states the purpose of the letter. Right, and then the main content usually conveys like all necessary detailed information, like you'll have the furnisher's name or the account number. And when I say furnisher, it's usually like the credit company, like basically like a Discover or whatever the creditor is. So you'll usually have the creditor's name or in the account numbers associated with that creditor. And then the last paragraph usually summarizes the information provided. So it like restates the letter's intent and offers instructions on what you want to happen. So you want to make sure you have that part in there. Now that's usually gonna be the longest part, but it doesn't have to be like 2 pages. It could be a quick little summary, all fitting in 1 page. But usually that's usually what the body of the account has. So you want to make sure you have that in the letter. The next thing is, and we talked about it within the body. Now remember that body part, it's going to have like 3 things within that body. You want to make sure it has the furnisher's name in the account. You want to make sure it has the reason for why you're writing this letter, and then the instructions, all in that same body, right? So you can put all those things, basically the furnisher's name and account numbers, the reason, and then the instructions of what you want to happen. So you can put all of that in that body of the content. So you can see basically on the sample, as you're writing the letter, you're gonna have all these parts included in that body part. So like I said, you want to make sure the furnisher's name, the account number, and usually when you're talking about the furnisher's name and account, like typically like when you look at your credit reports, it usually have the account number, but it won't have the full account number. It'll be like 12345 XXXX, and you want to make sure that you put that. You want to put it exactly how it is. If it says 12345 XXXX, make sure you put that. Right, so they can identify it. So make sure when it comes to furnisher's name and the account number, you have that. The next thing is the reason, right? So when you're putting the reason within that in the body, you want to make sure like you're disputing each item. So once you're going through your credit report, like whatever each item that you want to dispute, you want to make sure you put a reason for each one of those. So let's say each item you dispute needs a reason to be removed, right? So some of the common reasons you'll have is like the following information is not mine. The information is inaccurate, please remove it. The following information is outdated and want it removed from my report. So these are some of the reasons that you want to put. Make sure it's very specific, it's very quick and detailed, and make sure they understand exactly what it is. It doesn't have to be this long paragraph, just make sure it's quick, detailed, and concise. All right, and the next thing is the instructions, and this is important. You want to make sure you're telling whoever you're sending to what you want them to do. It's important to tell them what you want them to do. They're not going to try to read your mind and say, all right, since that's wrong, but maybe he wants us to do whatever. You want to make sure you tell them exactly what you need to do, whether you need to update it, delete it, or whatnot. So when it comes to instructions, this is where you need to explain what you want to happen. You need to place a sentence or 2 to clearly describe the outcome you want as instructed on the recipient. So some common instructions include, please correct or update the information on the credit report. please remove the misleading information on your credit, or please investigate and remove the inaccurate information. So you want to make sure you put all that in the body of this letter. So you want to make sure you, like I said, the furnisher's name, the account, you want to make sure you put the reason, and then most importantly, you want to make sure you put the instructions. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. So now the final thing you want to do is just sign your letter, right? Now, there's questions on like how how you should do it. Some people tell you if you want to put your signature, but some people are afraid of, like, when it comes to identity theft, people are taking, their signature and using it to put on other items and stuff like that. So if you don't feel comfortable actually putting a signature, just make sure you just put type your name. You could write it in print. That's usually fine as well. You don't have to actually put a signature. Just write your name so they know it's you. So that's just pretty simple. So now that you have a basic understanding of what a dispute letter looks like, let's go over some tips as you send out your first dispute letter. So one of the first things you're doing as you're gathering all your letters and you're trying to figure out how to get everything together, the first thing you want to figure out is like, okay, what are you disputing, right? So when you're coming to figure out what you want to dispute, you want to make sure you choose the easiest thing, right? You want to make sure you go for the easiest thing. You want to get a quick win, right? And these are usually things like maybe they spelled your name incorrectly, or they had a wrong address, or maybe they messed up on an account. So the way you go about doing this is like two ways. So you want to either have them verify, so through a verification method, or factual disputing. Now, a lot of people get this confused with like validation, right? So validation is basically when, let's say, a creditor or a debt collection agency sends out, they say, oh, you owe $5,000. What you would then do is say, you know what? You would send them a validation letter asking them, you need to validate and prove that this belongs to me, right? Now, this is different from verification and factual disputing. Basically, when you're verifying and the factual disputing, you're going to send these to the bureaus, right? You're going to send these to the bureaus, like the three bureaus, or the TransUnion, Equifax, or TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So you're going to ask them, basically, like, you're going to put the burden of proof on them. So let's say there's some incorrect information. What you're going to do is you're going to ask them to verify that this information is correct, right? So that puts the burden on them to find out if that information is correct or not. So what they will do is, basically, as you send them that letter, they're then going to say, all right, this is the information I have, and then they're going to send it to that creditor for you. So they put, instead of you having to go to the creditor and then they send it back to you, then you send it to the bureaus to take it off your credit report. What you're going to do is you send it to the bureau, and that puts the burden on them to then contact that creditor and have them verify the information for you. So they're doing the work for you. And if, let's say, they send it to the creditor and they don't respond in 30 days, what the three bureaus would do is they would then delete it for you. So that's why you want to make sure they do it and then put the burden of proof on them. And the factual disputing is, you just basically, it's almost like the same thing, but you're saying, based on this evidence, like this is factually incorrect. Let's say this account number is incorrect, or the address is incorrect. So this is like factual disputing, and you know for a fact that is not correct. So what you do is that you make sure you put that in there and you let them know that it's not correct, and you want to make sure that they update it, or you tell them whatever it is that they need to do. So the next tip is, when you're sending out your dispute letters, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you send it to the bureaus. And I stated this earlier, just a little while ago. Instead of sending it to, let's say, a creditor, make sure you send it to the bureaus, because like I said before, they're going to do the work for you. Okay, so once you send them, when you send the dispute letter to them, what they'll do is, like they said, they'll verify that information, and basically they'll contact the creditors asking if this information is correct, and the creditors have to get back to them within 30 days. So instead of you having going to the creditors and then going back and forth, just send it to your bureaus and then have them do the work for you. And that's you always do that. That's the first step. Always send it to the bureaus first so they can do the work for you, right? And when you're disputing it, when you're disputing your items on your credit report, make sure you choose no more than 5 items. So let's say you have a credit report and it has like 10 incorrect things on there. You don't want to attach all 10. You don't want to bring all 10 things up to the credit bureaus, because what they're gonna see is they're like, all right, he has too many items. They think it's fraudulent. They won't take it seriously. They might throw it out, and that's just gonna delay the whole process. So take no more than like 5 items, maybe 4, between no more than 4, but no more than 5. Just put out 5 items, and then you can send that information to them, and they'll make sure they'll go over it, instead of you having like 10, 12 items and like, all these things are inaccurate. Just send like 5, because you don't want to make sure that you delay the process. Another thing is you want to make sure that understand that like each borough has their own record, right? So let's say that you find Experian has some information that's incorrect. Or let's say you have information that's incorrect on all three of them. So you think you're gonna just send it to Experian and you think they're gonna contact TransUnion and Equifax and say, look at we found that there's some inaccurate information on so and so's credit report. Can you like remove it? They're not gonna do that. If you contact Experian, Experian's gonna handle their books. So it's up to you to make sure that you're printing out all three of your credit reports, and then you're taking each item. So you're taking 5 from Experian, 5 from TransUnion, and 5 from Equifax, and you're making sure you're sending dispute letters for all of them, because they're not going to contact each other. They all have their own information. So it's up to you to make sure that you're reading your credit report and making sure you're taking an accurate account of what's going on within your credit report. So the next tip is including some type of ID or address verification, and this is usually done on the first time you're sending your dispute letter, because obviously when it comes to sending it to the bureaus, they want to make sure that it's you. And this only needs to be done the first time. So once you send a letter to them the second, third, fourth, after that, you don't have to put these IDs. So usually that first time they're gonna want you to have some form of ID, and usually some government issued ID, like say a driver's license or a passport, and you just need a copy. Also, you're gonna need something to verify your address to state that you live where you currently live, and that's usually like a utility bill. So once you're sending off that dispute letter, make sure you send a copy of like you say your license or utility bill. So once you do that the first time, then after that, going forward, you don't have to do that again. The next tip is like once you're sending these dispute letters, like if you have proof for whatever you're disputing, make sure you add it. So like for example, like let's say you have you came to an agreement with a debt collector and you have a copy of that agreement and they're still reporting on your credit report. Make sure you make a copy of that agreement and then you send that to them. Also, let's say you're a victim of identity theft and you reported it to the police and you have a copy of the police report. Make sure that you make a copy of that police report and you send it along with your dispute letter. Another thing is like, let's say the creditor made a mistake on your report. Make sure whatever mistake that they had, they stated it. Make sure you have a copy of that. So whatever proof that you have for whatever you're disputing, make sure you send that copy along with this. As much evidence you have helps strengthen your case and makes the process much faster. The last tip is when you're sending out these dispute letters, you want to make sure you send it certified. I know it can cost a little bit more, but you want to make sure that these people get it, because like things get lost in mail. You want to make sure that you have evidence that you have sent it out. Now you don't have to do it, it's not a requirement, but just to avoid any complications, I would recommend it. But obviously it depends on what you can afford. If you can't afford to always send it certified, then regular mail is fine. But just know that there is a possibility, or you do risk the chance of like something getting lost, or maybe they don't receive it and it's just going to delay the process. As long as you understand that, that's cool. But like if you can, just make sure if you can send it certified. If you have a bunch of items that you're obviously going to be sending, then obviously you want to be cost effective. Maybe if it's just 1 or 2, then send it certified, and it'll make it much easier and much safer and make the process quicker. Right. So final thoughts is like, look, if you're doing credit repair, like you don't really need to pay a credit repair company to do this for you. You can repair your own credit. It is a little bit of legwork, which is why a lot of people pay a credit repair company to do it. But to save you money, save you hassle, and save you, because there's a lot of scammy credit repair companies out there, save you the hassle. It is possible to do it yourself. You just have to understand the process and like understand that you are protected with laws that protect the consumer, and know that you can do it as long as you have the right tools in place. And understand that it does take time, because when you're sending it to these credit bureaus and these collection agencies, they have usually like 30 days to make sure they respond to you. And usually like it's from when they receive it, it's not when you send out. So when you send out the letter, they receive it, they have 30 days from when they received it. And usually you give them, and if they don't come within that 30 days, you usually give them like 10, 15 days, because it'd be like, and I usually say anywhere from 30 to 45 days, because obviously they're sending by mail, and it can take a little bit longer. But just understand that you can do it yourself, right? So that's all I got for you guys today. If you got any comments or questions, make sure to leave it down below. Hit the like button and share, and if you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe. Right? So you guys take care and have a good one. Later.